on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 14 edition of the Late Night Live Stream presented by the Dose Media Network. I'm Ben Harvard, joined by Joey Carrion. Big week, dude. You know, it's the final week of the regular season in redraft, and it's a very interesting week on DraftKings. How you feeling coming into it?
Yeah, I mean, final week of redraft, final week of the best ball regular season for DraftKings and Underdog, right? And Underdog has 2 million up top. So whoever's on top of that leaderboard is definitely sweating tomorrow for sure.
To say the least.
In terms of DFS and DraftKings and just the overall slate, I mean, it's not the best slate in the world, you know. Only one game with a total above 50, only 2 games with a total above 45, and that's the Bengals-Browns game and the Lions-Vikings game. So just from a game perspective, not that great. From a pricing perspective, not that great. I think it's going to be a lower scoring slate for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, DraftKings wise, that's going to push a lot of people in similar directions with, you know, clear-cut, obvious spots to attack. You know, the Cowboys stuff, everything in the Detroit Vikings game is going to be highly owned. So it's up to us to figure out how to get contrarian here in a way that, you know, makes sense. So we're not just burning EV with these lineups. And I have a few ideas. What do you say we get right into it?
All righty. All right. Quarterbacks? What are you looking at for quarterbacks on this week 14 slate?
Well, I want to start by saying I'm pretty surprised in the direction that ownership projections have evolved since we recorded early in the week, did our preview podcast, recorded that Wednesday. And the way that we were kind of looking at things then was that Tyler Huntley would be sort of the standout cash game play, you know, the highest owned quarterback on the slate. But I think people are really concerned about just the general status of the Ravens, you know, pass catcher corps and this kind of being just a slog of a game. So the field, at least, is gravitating towards Jared Goff for cash. I don't know how you feel. Earlier in the week, I think we were both leaning Huntley, but projections have kind of made it clear that Goff is a, you know, at least more optimal play. The numbers will tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense for sure. And, you know, we discussed both of these quarterbacks on the Wednesday podcast, and we did both agree that we thought Huntley would be the higher owned quarterback. But like you said, it is going to be Jared Goff as the highest owned quarterback on this slate. And I mean, from a game total perspective, obviously makes a ton of sense. 51.5 total. And this game is really the only game, in my opinion, that can separate in a meaningful way. So you kind of just want as much exposure to this game in cash as you possibly can. And Jared Goff, I mean, he's probably a good bet to finish between 18 and 24 DraftKings points, right? He's a threat for the 300-yard bonus, probably a couple touchdowns through the air, and he's going to get you 20 points. And that's going to be good enough at 5,600, especially with some of the top quarterback options in tougher spots, like Josh Allen going up against a tough Jets defense. Kind of a bad game environment with the Eagles and Giants, but that has a total of 45, one of the highest on the slate for Jalen Hurts. So he's just not really competing with a lot of ceiling at the quarterback position this week, in my opinion. And the game environment and his pass catchers and just the overall skill talent in that game looks too good to pass up.
I totally agree with that. Now, I'll say right now, I'm going to play Goff in cash over Huntley at this point in the week. I mean, I think that is clearly the way to go. Like you said, we want as much exposure to this game as possible in cash games. In tournaments, different story. Okay, Jared Goff as the highest owned quarterback. I mean, it's on the screen right now. I mean, took it off, but it's on the screen right now. The Lions have scored over 30 points three times out of their last 4 games, and Jared Goff has gone over 20 points in only one of them. You know, so there are obvious paths to failure here. The Lions love to run it at the goal line. We all know what Jamal Williams is doing at this point. Some of that you could say is variance, but the Lions are a team that even when they are putting up a ton of points, it doesn't necessarily one-for-one equate for a monster Jared Goff game. In tournaments, I think it's pretty easy to get away from him. And stacking wise, right? Like, we know Amon-Ra is going to get his, but all the other Lions wide receivers will just sort of like get a little bit here and there. You know, Jameson, Chark, Reynolds is healthy. Leaf, DeAndre Swift is going to get some. It's like outside of Amon-Ra, I think it's really tough to stack. So in tournaments, the way that I would play this game, I think I would be a lot more likely to go the Kirk Cousins route because it's such, a more consolidated target share there. Cousins will have some ownership, but at least we know the ball is really going to three places and three places only. That's going to be Jefferson, Hawkinson, and Adam Thielen. So I think it makes a lot of sense to approach game stacks in tournaments more from the Viking side of the ball. I don't know what your initial take on that is.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. You outlined it pretty well there. And Kirk Cousins is only 6,100, and he is also going to be pretty owned on this slate. So, you're not getting any ownership leverage there. But at the quarterback position, you don't really have to worry about getting too contrarian. It's not a surprise that Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins in the best game on the slate are going to be the two highest owned quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But from a football perspective, it's Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
There's plenty of ways, at least in my opinion, that this game can be somewhere close to the total and these guys not hit their ceilings or not separate in a meaningful way to where, if you fade them in a tournament, they're not going to kill you.
Yeah.
So I'd be more inclined to just get off both of them in tournaments for some higher upside options. I think Geno Smith is a higher ceiling play at quarterback. I think Watson, Prescott, Burrow in that mid to upper tier are better ceiling options for tournaments. Nobody's going to play Dak. Nobody's going to play Deshaun Watson. And personally, I just think their ceilings are a little bit higher. So how I would approach it would be, stacking that game without the quarterbacks and building tournament lineups like that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think you're getting so much exposure to the ceilings of both of those quarterbacks through their pass catchers. And, specifically Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson, who will both have ownership. But just because you're playing into ownership in those spots doesn't mean you need to also double down and play into the quarterback ownership. I think it's really interesting that if you look at the top 5 implied team totals on this slate, you have KC in there, you have Buffalo in there, you have the Eagles in there, and yet all of those, 3 of those quarterbacks are going to be under 10% owned. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Patrick Mahomes. To me, that screams, as a really interesting way to go in tournaments.
Yeah, and Dak Prescott, as you could see on the screen, the Cowboys have a 30.75 implied team total, but nobody's going to play Dak. Obviously, the concerns with just defensive touchdowns, running the ball with Zeke and Pollard every play kind of are limiting Dak's ceiling in this spot, but I would include him in there as well as top quarterbacks that are not going to be played. So, yeah, that's really the direction that I would go in tournaments is just getting off of, pretty low ceiling options in Tyler Huntley, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins to go up to some more high ceiling options with Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Watson, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, etc., and just stacking that Lions Vikings game without the quarterback. So playing an ASB Justin Jefferson correlation or ASB and TJ Hawkinson or Cook and a Lions pass catcher outside of ASB, something like that. That's how I would approach that.
Yeah, definitely, man. I listened back to our podcast. I can't believe we didn't mention anything about the TJ Hawkinson revenge game here. Like clear cut oversight, clear cut. I see your cursor was highlighted over Joe Burrow there. He's the other guy who, he's going to be right there in terms of ownership with Kirk and Goff. How do you feel about Joe Burrow here? The question in my eyes is whether or not the Browns are going to be able to push Cincinnati here on the road. Watson's second game back obviously looked extremely rusty in his first game. Do you think that he sort of turns things around and puts up enough of a fight to push Joe Burrow here? Joe Mixon will be back in this game.
Yeah, this is obviously like the highest variance spot on the slate, in my opinion, is the Browns side of the ball, right? With Watson, and nobody truly knows if he's just dust or if it was just, a one game sample, he played bad. Texans have been good against opposing quarterbacks from a fantasy standpoint. But the game environment is there. I think that the Browns still have some playoff hopes. They're obviously committed to Deshaun Watson long term, and we have a very big sample of him being an elite quarterback in the NFL. Does that all go away because he didn't play for a while? Maybe, potentially. But it is a spot to capitalize on in tournaments. And in this game specifically, I think does have shootout potential if Watson is who they thought they were signing for $250 million guaranteed. And I like both sides of the ball, Burrow, Watson, and the stack partners are pretty clear with both quarterbacks as well, which makes it even better.
Yeah, and I mean, especially from the Bengals side of the ball, Joe Mixon is going to be extremely chalky. Jamar Chase will have a ton of ownership, but T. Higgins looks like one of the better leverage plays on the slate. So that's pretty clear cut, in my opinion, as a way to go in tournaments. Anytime you can get, several pieces of the Bengals stuff at appropriate ownership, I like that. I don't think Watson is dust one way or the other, even if he does struggle tomorrow. I mean, it's reasonable that it takes a few games to knock off the dust. I mean, I wouldn't hold anything that happens over this next few stretch of games against him going into next year, but I agree with your take. I mean, it would be not surprising for me if he came out and looked as bad as he did last week. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if he came out and balled out, because he is that type of player. He does have that talent. And that seems like a spot where in tournaments you have to attack if you're playing tournaments right? You want to lean into variance. You're willing to embrace the downside if you believe the upside is there. And I don't think there's a better encapsulation of that on this slate than Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and I mean, projection wise, it kind of disagrees with that.
Yeah.
From a ceiling standpoint, I mean, he's behind guys like Tyler Huntley, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins. Personally, I just think that's wrong. But I get why his ceiling projection is so low, especially with how he looked last week. But yeah, I definitely think that is the side you want to lean into in tournaments. And in this game specifically, especially if the Bengals guys come in a little bit under-owned or moderately owned. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Hayden Hurst is most likely out for this game. I'm pretty sure he's doubtful.
No, he's confirmed out.
He confirmed out at this point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Hayden Hurst is out. That takes another pass catcher out of the offense. It's going to condense around Chase, Higgins, and then some Boyd, and mix in P. Ryan might mix in a little bit. But Joe Burrow, I mean, has the ability to break any slate that he's on. So this is one of my favorite games to target for tournaments for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Just updating myself here on some of the injury information. As it regards to Geno, I think DK Metcalf's status is pretty important, but he's still questionable / probable. So
yeah, so I mean, the big questionable guys is DK Metcalf is questionable. Saquon Barkley is a true game time decision, supposedly. And I think that's really it from, pretty meaningful standpoint. I mean, Kenneth Walker most likely out. So we'll have to talk about the cheap Seahawks running backs when we get there. But Geno Smith would be the last quarterback that I would play in tournaments, outside of the top guys. I mean, this Seahawks team is probably going to have to go super pass heavy. Kenneth Walker most likely out. DJ Dallas most likely out. Travis Homer missed last week, should be back this week, but he's a pass catching running back. And Tony Jones Jr. is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And he also got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So would it surprise anybody if the Seahawks come out, a team that has one of the highest pass rate over expectations already on the season? Would it surprise anybody if they come out and just pass more than they have the entire season? In the spot at home against Carolina, Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I love that stack this week.
Yeah, I think that's really, really solid this week. And I mean, Travis Homer's just not a guy that I really even believe has like a 20 touch game in his range. He's just not that guy, right? Like there's no way. I mean, they have some other, ancillary backs like Darwin Thompson, Chiefs former bust at running back is on the team. They've got Godwin, Buki from, he was on the Lions for a minute. Like, I don't know, man. Like, they're all scrubs. I think that this is a team that's shown us pretty clearly that they don't mind just throwing away the run game and passing hard with Geno. And I don't see why they wouldn't just do that with all their running backs injured. Last quarterback I want to touch on before we move on here is, I mean, it's absolutely disgusting, but Russell Wilson at 5,100. Do you think that, I mean, it'd be a good week for him to catch up on the bathrooms, trying to throw more touchdowns this season than having bathrooms in his house. Hasn't done really too much of anything this season, but it's a good spot at home against the Chiefs. Chiefs give up a lot of passing yards, consolidated target share with Cortland Sutton out. He's cheap as hell. I don't know, man. It's disgusting, but what do you think?
I mean, it is disgusting, but he's projecting as a positive value right now.
Yeah.
His ceiling is obviously very low, and I think it's just a combo of things. I think we talked about this before, but Russell Wilson has been bad, but the coaching has been bad. They've had injuries everywhere on offense, running back, wide receiver, offensive line. So I think everything just kind of went against the Broncos this year. But is Russ totally dust? I don't think so, personally. I just think that, like I said, there's a lot of factors just working against this Broncos team right now. But he hasn't been good nonetheless. It's hard to click his name, but you could stack this game for cheap and fit all of the expensive skill players that we want on this slate, especially on a tight slate. You can get a lot of ceiling into your lineup going that way. And if Russ gets you 25 at 5,100, you're probably cooking, but he's only gone over 20.8 points one time.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's super thin, but obviously the reason that you would make a play like that would be, like, as you said, you could stack ASB, you could stack JJ, you could even throw some other high price guys in there and make it fit. I think it's at least interesting. And Brock Purdy is the same price, big cock Brock. And as we noted on Wednesday, I mean, the price of the skill position players for San Francisco is very noticeable on this slate. Deebo Samuel, 6,100, Ayuk, 5,800. George Kittle sticks out like a sore thumb to me at 4,300 against a Bucs team that's given up quite a few points to the tight end position. I mean, I might even be more willing to go that route and, play a bring back with Godwin and still, bang out a lot of high price ceiling skill players in a stack like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, just capitalizing on some uncomfortable situations that the field isn't going to play, quite frankly. Nobody's confident in the Bucs or the 49ers side of the ball. Nobody's confident in Russell Wilson to have a good game in a plus spot against a team that they're most likely going to get blown out by. They're gonna be trailing. They're gonna have to pass the ball. His pass catchers are cheap. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a slate where you can get a little off the board at quarterback, save salary, and just try and jam in as many of the top skill position players as possible for sure. But yeah, my favorites personally for tournaments: Joe Burrow, Dak, Deshaun Watson, and Geno Smith.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I really want to play some Josh Allen this week. I mean, anytime you can get Josh and his pass catchers at low ownership, I mean, I know it hasn't happened lately, but if Josh drops 40, would I be surprised? Absolutely not. So
how can you like not play Geno though? Like I was actually thinking about it the other day. Like it's actually insane how well Geno Smith is playing this year.
I mean, he's leading the league in completion percentage, right?
Like he's in the MVP conversation.
Yeah.
Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Which
is unbelievable.
Which is absolutely insane. And he has the best quotes of all time. So
does he?
Yeah. Did you see this? That's tough.
That's a bar. I respect that.
That's tough. You gotta play some Geno stacks.
I'll definitely play some Geno stacks. All right. That is more than enough time dedicated to the quarterback position. Let's move on to running back. I think it's a pretty ugly week at running back. I'm not going to lie. There are a few standout plays, but I think that like the pool of guys that I'm considering is relatively thin. I mean, we can start at the top end here. Derrick Henry week. You called it. I was kind of waiting on the ownership. I thought it could go either way, but it looks like Derrick Henry is going to be stone cold chalk this week, and rightfully so.
Which I didn't think he would be, to be honest.
No,
I thought it was going to be. I thought he was going to be like moderately owned, just because this kind of range of running backs hasn't been garnering much ownership this week. But I mean, it makes sense with this being a horrible running back slate for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that people just kind of realize that Derrick Henry is part owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, as you are putting up on the screen right here.
I mean, it's hard not it's hard not to play him.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the pod, but I mean, if you add up these yards, he's probably at like damn near like 700-800 yards in his last 6 games, 12 touchdowns. So he's averaging 2 touchdowns a game in his last 6 games against the Jags. The Jags are not good on run defense once again this year. So
shocker.
I mean, the question is always like, can you play a chalk Derrick Henry when he's not going to catch a ton of passes?
See, for me, I feel better about playing into like a Amon-Ra St. Brown chalk at essentially the same price, or like Justin Jefferson chalk for a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's recency bias, because obviously Derrick Henry has been on a bit of a cold streak lately with 3 games under 15 points in his last 4, but the spot is so good. Trevor Lawrence, we expect Lawrence to play, right? But I mean, I still think it's going to be, it's shaky. Like, these guys got absolutely obliterated by the Lions last week, and the Titans are, a good team. So I don't know, man. I think it's a good spot for Derrick Henry. I probably will not have too much exposure to him as somebody who's building, hand building, maybe 10 lineups tomorrow. I think if you're MMEing though, I would probably just like not take a hard stand on this. Like, I would be in line with the field with Derrick Henry this week. I want exposure. I wouldn't full fade, because obviously he can drop 35 plus, but I don't know. I kind of like some of the wide receiver chalk more.
Well, the question really is, are you playing Derrick Henry in cash? Because he's in the
Absolutely
train lineup
not.
right now. Oh, he's in the train lineup right now.
Yeah, I'm not playing him in cash.
I don't know. That might be a mistake. Fading the big
so?
dog at home against the Jags with
In
nobody
December?
else in December.
Yeah.
Because you could fit Derrick Henry in ASB.
Yeah, but you can't fit Derrick Henry, ASB, and Justin Jefferson. And that's the fucking problem. That right there is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, from a lineup construction standpoint, I don't think a $9,000 wide receiver is a must play by any stretch. He's obviously projecting as one of the best values on the slate, even at $9K, but he's only projected as a 1.5 value, which is good, but not great. And Derrick Henry, I think, is projected.
I mean, Derrick Henry is one of the better values on the entire slate.
Yeah. Derrick Henry is projected at a 2.5 value, and he's $1,100 cheaper. And I would argue that the running back pool is extremely weak, compared to the wide receiver pool, which is weak, but it's not as weak as the running backs. So I don't know. I personally would lean trying to get in Derrick Henry in cash, especially, like I said, with the lack of options that we have. But I mean, if you want to jam JJ, I mean, his ceiling is, I think, undoubtedly higher than Derrick Henry's. So
yeah, and I mean, the running back pool, to your point, is extremely weak this week. But I mean, I'm comfortable with a few of the guys that I think are going to be popular. I mean, Joe Mixon. Let's talk about it. Okay, Joe Mixon, I think, is in one of the best spots on the slate. Sets up really well against Cleveland. They have had one of the absolute worst rush defenses in the entire NFL right now. They are giving up let me pull this up here, second most fantasy points to opposing running backs this season. They've been getting absolutely torched as of late. They are a run funnel. Joe Mixon has an elite workload when healthy. The question is, has Samaje Perine played well enough recently to, earn a legitimate role. Pirine was, nothing more than a change of pace player when Joe Mixon was healthy leading up to this stretch. I kind of don't think it changes. I think Mixon comes back and he gets his role back in full, but obviously there's a little bit of fragility to that right now because of how well, Samaje Perine is playing. And then you add in a little bit of risk of this game being non-competitive if Watson, plays more to his downside case. I think that maybe they don't like fully jam Mixon, but Mixon's not on the injury report. He's sub 7K. He's at home as a favorite. It sets up really well for him, and I think he's a phenomenal play.
Yeah, I mean he's a great play from a projection standpoint, but I mean I hate being the game log guy, but if we are looking at his game logs, like he has one good game, in my opinion, relative to price the entire year. So it's not like I personally have never been a Joe Mixon guy. I mean, you've known me forever, especially over these last few years. I'm a notorious Joe Mixon hater.
You are.
Can you confirm?
Absolutely.
So I am kind of biased. I don't think he's that talented of a player. And as we can see here, his game logs have not been great. Only 2 games with 20 plus DraftKings points. So at 6,900, like his projection is obviously good. And I've played Joe Mixon more this year than probably any other year, to be honest. And I don't know. I'm comfortable with not playing Joe Mixon in cash because I think that's where we have to come in as, DFS guys and understand these situations and, make our predictions based on that. Right. And I think that Pirine has earned himself a larger role. So you might feel different about it. That's just my personal opinion. And I think he does eat into Mixon's workload. I think he has performed well enough to have more base work and more receiving work. Obviously, I could be wrong, but I'd be fine with not playing Mixon in cash. But with how weak running back is, I think a lot of lineups are going to have Mixon and Derrick Henry in them and then 4 wide receivers.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're getting outside of those 2 players in cash games, at least, I mean, I think the pool is extremely thin. I mean, there's like 2 other guys that I would consider cash viable at running back, and it would be Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift, who to me are both very comparable players. Both of them, I think, have a ton of talent, but both of them are in, very obvious timeshare situations. You're paying a little bit more for Tony Pollard, but Tony Pollard is the better player, better offense, higher team total, massive favorites, like literal 3-score favorites against the Texans.
17.5 point favorites.
It's crazy. I mean, Pollard at 6,700. Or they're going to cover.
That's a free bet for the people out there.
Yeah. And I mean, this dude has dropped over, 24 or more points, basically in 4 out of his last 5 games, essentially almost every game since he got an expanded role. How do you feel about this situation between Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, 2 guys that I think will have a fair amount of utilization in cash games this week?
Yeah. I mean, I love Tony Pollard, and, on the podcast, we talked about whether or not you would play Pollard or Mixon in cash. Personally, I'm going Pollard.
Yeah.
For 200 less. Because like I said, I am a Joe Mixon hater, but I think Tony Pollard is more talented. I think he has more explosiveness, and I think the touchdown upside is extremely high, even splitting with Zeke. And like I said, I believe Pirine is going to have a larger role. So, obviously not as big of a role as Zeke will have, but enough to eat into Joe Mixon's floor and ceiling. DeAndre Swift is okay, in my opinion. Obviously, he comes in last week, 18 touches, most of the season. They come out after the game this past week. They say, they need to scale him back. That's definitely concerning. But this, in my opinion, is still a 3-way timeshare with Jamal Williams and Justin Jackson. And for some reason, the Lions fall on the 1-yard line every fucking drive. And Jamal Williams is the goal line back. So I think that limits DeAndre Swift's ceiling. But from a talent perspective, from a reception upside perspective, DeAndre Swift definitely looks good on this slate for sure, but I probably wouldn't play him in cash, to be honest.
No, it seems thin. And I mean, once we're talking about DeAndre Swift at 20+% ownership in tournaments, that's definitely a red flag. That to me is a huge red flag.
Yeah, I'll fade. I'll fade that in tournaments for sure.
Mm-hmm. What up, Mr. Torian, our boy? Anybody in the chat has any questions, feel free to ask. We will answer.
Our chat's
Literally,
not getting spammed today with trolls because they got blocked for being weird.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
you could troll, but like once you start like being weird,
yeah,
like
there's a fine line. There's a fine line for sure.
because like it doesn't affect us, but it's still like everybody can read the chat and shit. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's our channel. Like,
yeah.
can't have that type of shit. Just can't. Let's see, what else do we have at the running back position? I mean, that's it for cash, right? I mean, is there anybody else that you would consider for cash games?
I mean, no, not really. I think the cash pool is really Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Tony Pollard, to be honest. um, I think you're choosing two of them. I think this is a four wide receiver week in cash. Foreman is interesting at 5,400. He was a full participant in practice on Friday, as you could see on the screen. I think he has 20 plus touch upside in one of the best spots on the slate. Seattle's one of the worst run defenses in the league. But there is a possibility that this game does get out of hand. But the Seahawks are only 3.5-point favorites for now, currently over the Carolina Panthers. So maybe the Panthers come in, keep this game a little bit closer than what people might expect, and Foreman can get there. But he's obviously just giving you nothing in the receiving game. So definitely thin, but I don't mind him on this slate for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I had a cash build that had Foreman, like, it had 5,400 left for a flex, and I thought it was interesting, but like I couldn't stomach playing it. And I mean, we might have a little every other week trend going here. I mean, look at this game log: 118, then 23. I mean,
Yeah, nice back to back here.
Yeah, he had a little back to back, but I mean, if you look at the last five, we would say that he's on pace for somewhere between 20 and 25 yards here in this next game. But yeah, I mean, I know, all jokes aside, like I do like Foreman a lot, but I would probably only go there in tournaments. Another player that I'm finding pretty interesting for tournaments this week that stands out just from an ownership perspective is Miles Sanders. Like we mentioned, really nobody on the Eagles is going to be played, which is kind of crazy since they're, literally one of the best 5 teams in football right now. They have a pretty high implied team total, higher than the Bengals, and, half of the Bengals team is going to be chalk. Nobody wants to play this. Sanders is a guy who, like, traditionally I feel like we look at as a guy without a ceiling, but he has 2 30+ point games this season, few and far between, but he can absolutely
That's
get
more
there.
Than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, that is absolutely more than Saquon Barkley. The Giants defense, especially from a rushing perspective, over the last 3 weeks, top 5 in yards allowed, 164.7 over the last 3, 141 on the season as an average. So they are getting absolutely decimated in terms of the run game. I mean, Eagles should, realistically roll in this game. And Miles Sanders is coming in with a projection under 5%. I think he looks really good for tournaments as a pivot, off of Zeke, who will have a fair amount of ownership, off of DeAndre Swift, who, as we said, ownership is starting to get a little bit out of hand. And, I don't know. I think Sanders is probably my call for like that, under 5% running back that you could take a shot on in tournaments this week.
Yeah, no, I love the Sanders call. He's a cheap mid-range running back, which has been the optimal in tournaments this year. In a good spot against a team, like you said, that has gotten torched on the ground over the last month of the season. And, they've gotten torched on the ground the entire season. The Eagles have arguably the best offensive line in football. And I think that they could run at will against this Giants defense. So Miles Sanders, 6,200, definitely fits the GPP running back archetype that has been winning people tournaments this year. So I like that call for sure.
Who else do you want to shout out here at the running back position? There are some interesting plays. It's all super thin after those top 4 guys that we mentioned, but I mean, this is a week I think that you can get thin at running back.
I mean, do you have any interest in Zeke?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed because I mean, it looks like Zeke is going to be pretty owned. I was kind of hoping that that ownership would really consolidate on Tony Pollard and Zeke would be sort of one for one direct line pivot, but I mean, Zeke is going to be, higher owned than like Deontay Foreman. So, I mean, he's definitely going to have ownership, but I do like him. And I talked about it a little bit on YouTube this week, in regards to Zeke's props, his player props on Prize Picks. I think Zeke makes a lot of sense in terms of just the game script. He seems better suited for, the salt away the game, clock killing snaps that the Cowboys should have a ton of this week as 17-point favorites. So I do like Zeke. It's just tough, man. I mean, what's the ceiling? We've seen it here. I mean, you can see it twice on the screen. There are 2 touchdown games under 20 points. Like, what is Zeke's ceiling realistically? I mean, he's like never hitting the bonus. Maybe he hits the bonus tomorrow for 100 yards, but like, he just doesn't have it, man. He doesn't have the juice anymore. He's not corn.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but when you're just taking a look at the overall running back slate, and if Zeke gets you 15 to 20 points and all of the, top options don't, break the slate or don't separate in a meaningful way, I could see Zeke being in the optimal lineup
Yeah.
with a 15 or 17-point game at 6,100. And same thing with Miles Sanders. Like, even if Miles Sanders scores 18 or 20 DK points, I could see him being in the optimal lineup with some of the running backs on the slate that I think are not that good of plays, like Nick Chubb, just for, blowout concerns there, and just with the overall lack of running backs. So I don't mind Zeke. I don't mind Miles Sanders. I think both of them are good tournament pivots off of the chalky Tony Pollard and Joe Mixon, but you're probably going to need one of these guys. You're going to need one of Mixon, Pollard, or Derrick Henry in tournaments
Yeah.
this week. It's just that simple. Do you have any interest in Dalvin Cook at 7,300? He's projecting well. CMC is a positive value on the slate, highest owned or highest price running back on the slate. Any interest there?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, I think they're both interesting. CMC got targeted just an absolute shit ton once Brock came in and Elijah Mitchell's out. So we kind of just really saw them lean into this. Like, the 10 targets is absolutely absurd. CMC could separate on a slate like this easily, I think. So, I mean, I definitely want to have some exposure to CMC. I think he's a great play to sort of build into your lineups, in a contrarian way if you're going chalk early and figure out, because I mean, you would have a ton of salary to, go down and make some moves if you needed to. I really like CMC this week in tournaments. Dalvin Cook is kind of tough. Like, he just really hasn't been having any type of ceiling performances this season. Like, where's the ceiling for Dalvin Cook? Truly, where is it? I'm missing it. I've been missing it all year. Like, I used to love playing Dalvin Cook in DFS. He has no games over 30 points this year. What are we doing? The hell are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, 3 games over 25 plus. I mean, that could get it done on this slate. 25 or 30 DraftKings points at 7,300. You definitely take that on the slate. But the Lions have been playing better on defense, especially rush defense. They've been tough against opposing running backs actually as of recent. So I don't mind Dalvin Cook 7,300. He's one of the better projecting running backs on the slate. He's also going to be one of the highest owned running backs on the slate, so it's not going to be sneaky. Just thought I should bring him up as one of the chalky running backs for week 14. But other than that, there's really not much to like get contrarian with. Rashad White would be a good look if Fournette is out, who's questionable right now, but I think he's probably going to play if I had to take a guess right now. Other than that, I'm not interested in any running back besides maybe like Travis Homer if those Seahawks running backs get ruled out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you felt about Travis Homer. I mean, I personally don't think I would play him no matter what. I'm comfortable. I don't think that Travis Homer beats you, like, ever.
Yeah, no, but he does have pass catching upside, full PPR site, on a team that should be passing a ton tomorrow. So as the only potential running back in that offense, outside of Tony Jones Jr., who obviously doesn't have an injury designation, I don't think they'd play him at all. To be honest, I think it would be Homer seeing a majority of the snaps and pass game work. I think the other cheap running back that might get some love is James Cook, who, is coming off a 20 touch game, highest touch game of the season. And it just looks like the Bills want to get him more involved in the offense. It seems like they kind of want to go away from Devin Singletary. I'm also a known Devin Singletary hater. You know that, but that's been profitable to fade Devin Singletary whenever he's owned. But it looks
Yeah.
like the Bills want to get away from him and use James Cook more as the lead back, with the other guys rotating in. So, I mean, do you have any interest in James Cook in this spot against the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think we're talking about, I mean, obviously he has 20 touch potential here. He has 11 targets over the last 2 weeks. He's attached to, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, one of the best offenses in the league, and the price tag is right. Obviously, Jets is a negative matchup. They've been really good at limiting opposing running backs, but I still think that like getting exposure to a potential 20 touch player in the Bills offense with pass catching upside at a cheap price tag makes a lot of sense. Especially just like as a one-off, get some exposure to that game. It's just tough because like, is he scoring 2 touchdowns ever? Like, is he going to have a ceiling game? Is that possible? I guess it is, but I mean, I think that they like Singletary enough to still keep him semi-involved. So,
I mean, yeah, I would agree that, he probably doesn't have a 2 touchdown game in his range at this point, with splitting with two other running backs plus Josh Allen. Um, but he does have pass catching upside, as we see. I think that they drafted him to be, that explosive pass catcher out of the backfield. Good draft capital, second round, right? And I do think that he has taken the reins in this Bills backfield. And it just seems like they want to become more balanced. Like they want to have, the threat on the ground, instead of teams just playing, the too high safety look against them and limiting Gabe Davis and Diggs and the pass catchers that they have. They could just run the ball with James Cook. So Cook, 4,600, definitely in play for sure as a cheap running back option on the slate. But other than that, I mean, for tournaments, I don't really have a call. I do like that Miles Sanders call. But yeah, I don't have a tournament winner at running back. I do think that like one of Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, or Dalvin Cook though is you're gonna need one of them.
yeah, I think the way that I'm planning on playing it is I would most likely just roll one of the chalk guys and then try and not roll two. Because I think that, the chalk guys have enough downside to them, specifically like Swift. And I think Pollard with the Zeke split and blowout risk, there's enough downside there, and mixing even with the P Ryan stuff that we talked about. I think that you play one of those guys, hope that they hit their upside case, and then you mix in somebody contrarian, whether it be like Miles Sanders, Zeke, if you're not playing Pollard in that lineup, or like Deontay Foreman or something like that. Last situation I do want to touch on at running back, though, is like if Saquon Barkley gets ruled out, I mean, Matt Breida is probably a really good play at 4,300. I mean, the other running backs on the Giants roster, let me just run through this real quick. Gary Brightwell, definitely a made up person. S. Platscummer. I don't know what the S stands for. Never heard of this dude. Platscummer? Bro, what? And then we have Jay Sean Corbin. 3 people who literally never heard of their names in my entire life. Matt Breida is at least somebody. I know he exists. I know that he can, make plays on an NFL field. 4,300. The only weak spot of the Eagles defense is, in theory, their rush defense. I mean, if Barkley was out, I mean, would you have any interest at Breida at a really good price tag?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Breida would probably be one of the better projected values on the slate. And I mean, he would definitely get ownership for sure if Barkley's out. If it's like an 11:30 inactive and people have time to adjust, I could see him being, 20-25% owned. If he's like a 12:30, 12:45, like truly a late game time decision, like go out on the practice field or go out on the field and practice for warm-ups, and he comes back in the locker room at 12:40 and he's like, I can't go. Like, Breida's going to be like the best tournament play on the slate.
Yeah, definitely something to be keeping an eye on if you're playing tomorrow.
Yeah, so obviously we don't have that information now, but if you're playing DFS seriously, you're watching for any news that comes out Sunday morning either way. So,
all right, move on to the wide receiver position.
Wide receivers. This is the spot this week.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the spot. So, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a stone cold lock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What else can you say? 7,800.
We don't need to discuss ASB.
No, just absolutely too cheap. Sun God is a glorious play. I think Garrett Wilson is right up in that same range, just in terms of ownership, at least. I actually think that, you could make a downside case for Garrett Wilson. Price tag is really, really good. I mean, 15 targets last week is absurd, but this is a much tougher matchup against Buffalo on the road. Is Mike White going to keep being as good as Mike White's been? I'm skeptical of that. I don't know, man. I mean, I would feel comfortable getting away from Garrett Wilson in tournaments at really high ownership because there's a lot of good options. Tyler Lockett in that price range. I mean, Mike Evans is going to have zero ownership. There's a lot of ways you can go at wide receiver this week. But in terms of chalk, right, I'm playing ASB. I'm playing into ASB chalk, and I'm playing into Justin Jefferson chalk. I'm not afraid to do that. I would just be very cognizant of getting different in other ways in lineups like that.
But aren't you scared of Jeff Okudah?
Absolutely not.
I mean, you're a Lions fan.
Not. I am. That's never stopped me from betting against the Lions. In fact, it's been very profitable to be an emotionally detached Lions fan. That being said, I will give a quick Lions call here. Tomorrow is the Lions season. If the Lions beat the Vikings tomorrow, they're going to the playoffs. If they lose tomorrow, it's chalk. That's just how it's going to go. Tomorrow, you can just know what's going to happen. Lions make the playoffs if they win tomorrow. Season's done if they don't. So you heard it here first.
I mean, the Lions are favorites right now.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? I mean,
they've been playing better than the Vikings.
I read this on Twitter. I didn't confirm this, so excuse me if I'm spreading misinformation, of which there is plenty on Twitter these days.
Fuck yeah, everybody does. Who gives a fuck?
I mean, true. I mean, I think that this is the first time in NFL history where a 10-2 team has been an underdog against like a team that's below 500.
Checks out to me.
Yeah. So very interesting stuff there. I mean, that would kind of tell you to bet the Vikings, but I don't know, man.
I mean, I was listening to a pod and they were talking about betting, and they said that they expect the that line to move towards the Vikings come tomorrow, like game time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Smash Vikings and over. # lock of the year.
Nah, Matt, Lions are winning tomorrow, bro. I'm sorry. I'm definitely biased, but Lions are going to smash tomorrow.
Nah, I mean, that's a close game. It could go either way. What is it? -2, -2.5 to the Lions right now. I think that goes down to like a pick 'em come game time. I think it got to a pick 'em around like Thursday or so. But majority of people are betting like right before the games.
Right.
People aren't worried about like CLV and trying to get in their bets early in the week.
Facts.
Facts. See, it's like the Vikings have won a ton of one-score games, which is part variance, but it is also part like skill and coaching, and the Vikings have done really well in those spots, and I think it is a skill to win close games. So if it comes down to it, I think that I do think that the Vikings win tomorrow.
Mr. Torian, you're a Vikings fan. Shout out to you, bro. Hey, it's all, we'll see how it goes. I mean, either way, I think these guys are phenomenal chalk just because like these are two literal horrific secondaries. And these are two guys with elite target shares and elite talent. So, I mean, simple and plain, they're good chalk. I don't even think that you're playing into too much ownership by playing them as long as you get contrarian. Like you play like a Miles Sanders, Deontay Foreman running back core in this lineup and you're fucking lit. So I absolutely love doing stuff like that. Garrett Wilson as well in the cash game consideration. Who else are we looking at for cash games at the wide receiver position? You did say it was going to be a 4 wide receiver week, and I do agree with that.
Yeah, so the train lineup that, if you're watching, the train lineup is the lineup that a lot of people play in cash games, specifically double ups. That's a lineup that the optimizers will spit out. There's a lot of discords out there. A lot of people come together, try and form the best lineup, and that's what everybody runs. The cash lineup is not going to have Justin Jefferson in it. I will tell you that right now.
No,
It
I
is
know.
not going to have Justin Jefferson. So you are fading the train lineup tomorrow, which is perfectly fine. The train lineup doesn't mean it's the best lineup. From a projection standpoint, it probably does, but it doesn't mean it's the best. The cash game lineup is going to have Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's going to have a cheap wide receiver. And then the flex, that's up for grabs right now. So some players that I've seen get a little bit of steam. DJ Chark, potentially 4,300. You have the cheap Texans receivers in Dorsett and Chris Moore. They're like 3K if I scroll down, whatever. They're like 3K. Kendall Hinton has had some buzz a little bit, 3,400 against the Chiefs. And then I think DJ Moore in the mid-range is going to be pretty owned as well at 5,500. And a lot of people are going to go there. So I think a lot of lineups are going to have this trio. And then really it depends what you do from there. But this is the trio that I think the train lineup specifically is going to have.
DJ Moore, huh? I've been seeing that as well. I don't love that. I really don't love that. Do you? Are you going to play DJ Moore in cash?
I mean, he's projected as a pretty good value. One of the highest owned players on the slate. Good matchup against Seattle. I mean, Sam Darnold is clearly an upgrade for DJ Moore's ceiling, and I don't know. I mean, I think it's pretty thin, to be honest, but I could see why people are going there.
Do you think it's bad to like prefer Jerry Jeudy for 100 less? Because I kind of think I do.
Nah, I think Jerry Judy's going to get steamed a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Jerry Judy's not. I mean, he's like second tier chalk, I guess, at the wide receiver position, but he's still under 15%. I really thought that, by this time of the week, like with Cortland Sutton trending downward and then, officially being ruled out, that Judy would be like more like a 25% owned type of player. And he's not right now. I mean, that could definitely change by tomorrow, but Judy looks pretty interesting to me this week at 5,400.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Moore is projected for 2.3 more points than Jerry Jeudy currently. So the train lineup and most people are going to play DJ Moore in cash over Jerry Jeudy. But I think they are really similar. Like I don't think they should be over 2 points more in terms of projections. You probably do trust Sam Darnold and the Panthers offense a little bit more than the Broncos, as much as that is disgusting to say.
Yeah, it is.
But
I agree.
Jerry Jeudy's the only capable wide receiver on that team right now. And like, does playing DJ Moore over Jerry Jeudy really give you an edge, to be honest? Like, does it give you an edge besides like projected points?
No, it absolutely doesn't. I don't think it does.
So I mean, if you have conviction, I do like the Jerry Jeudy over DJ Moore call for sure.
I mean, I would definitely play it that way in tournaments with the ownership discrepancy. But I mean, again, I kind of agree with you that I think Jerry Jeudy could get steamed by tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if like Jerry Jeudy comes in 20%, even if the projections don't, catch up to that by tomorrow. Let's talk about the cheap guys though. Like you mentioned them, Chris Moore, Kendall Hinton, Philip Dorsett. Like, do you have a lean between these guys? Is that the route that you see yourself going in cash? I mean, I think that they're all pretty much the same play. So I think I probably like Dorsett the most just because he's the stone man. You're saving 400, but like you're literally just punting and praying with any of these guys, I think.
I mean, realistically, I don't want to play any of these guys, to
No.
be honest. I don't know what the lineup looks without these guys, but it's probably not feasible. Like you probably are playing like Dorsett at 3K. He's just more talented than Chris Moore. He's $400 cheaper. I mean, he just allows you to fit in everybody else that can get you there. So if Dorsett gets you, let's say, let's say he gets you 6 points, right? Like you'll take that. You'll take that. Sometimes you have to make these plays in order to fit in what you want, especially in cash. So
I mean,
it's
I'm
whatever.
gonna just say tomorrow's the type of week where like 125 points is gonna get it done in cash. Like that 6 point is not gonna kill you. Like as long as you nail the right pieces, I think that you can survive that 100%. I mean, you could survive like a donut out of Dorsett if nail the right, spend up options that you're making that sacrifice for. So I guess Dorsett is our guy at the low end, but take that with a grain of salt. These guys are all literal dog shit, and we're just punting and praying to make the rest of the lineup work. Where things get interesting, I think, in tournaments is, sort of that like upper mid tier guys like Chris Godwin, T. Higgins looks like a phenomenal leverage play off of Chase and Mixon. I mean, once again, we're going to get like AJ Brown at low ownership. We're going to get Steph Diggs at low ownership. I like going directions like that in tournaments for sure.
Yeah, man. T. Higgins, definitely a standout tournament play. Christian Kirk, I think, is a very good tournament play this week. Brandon comes in. Cousin has been the best quarterback in the fourth quarter this year in the NFL. Vikings should win tomorrow. I mean, yeah, I mean, I could believe that. Obviously, I don't know if it's true or not. But I could believe that. I mean, like I said, winning close games is a skill, and it is partially lucky, but it does come down to skill, quarterback play,
I believe Brandon. He
coaching.
just seems like a straight shooter.
Yeah, I mean, can't take anything at face value.
Wait, hang on. Mixon is a bad play. P. Ryan is a better runner than him, and Mixon is coming off injury. And all right, never mind. Brandon is not a straight shooter. Brandon's capping right now because P. Ryan is not better than Joe Mixon, and the only injury he's coming off of is a concussion, which won't affect him in any way whatsoever going forward. Sorry.
I mean, I might be on Brandon's side, but that's neither here nor there.
It's not.
I mean, there's no proof that says Joe Mixon is a better runner than Samaje P. Ryan, to be honest. There is no proof rather than name status. There is no proof. I just need 5 good picks, bro. First time betting, is it possible? Can I get a 25x?
25x. Were you getting the 25x on 5? Is that underdog?
Nah.
Because you need 6 on.
Nah. P. Ryan averages almost a full half yard more per carry. Mixon is the better receiver. That's what he said. Nah, so there's a Justin Herbert free prop tomorrow. So if you're not on Prize Picks, they have a Justin Herbert over half a passing yard prop. So make sure you join Prize Picks, log in, $20 max, deposit that. So you want some picks to play with that to make it a 6 leg, which will give him 25x.
That's gonna be all you, bro. I've been kind of tuned out of Prize Picks for this week. I made my picks early. They all got bumped. None of them are gonna hit. It's just standard. So I don't know. What are we looking at this point in the week on Prize Picks?
Mixon has double the carries. Yeah, I mean, sample size definitely comes into play. Over a larger sample, you're gonna average less yards per carry naturally. But I also don't think Joe Mixon is that good. So either way, back to receivers. T. Higgins, I love T. Higgins. Christian Kirk, one of my favorite tournament plays, especially with Trevor Lawrence most likely going to play. The Titans have been a pass funnel. Solid bring back with your Derrick Henry play if you want to go the Derrick Henry route in tournaments. Christian Kirk is just a good way to lower the ownership there. And I mean, what's his ownership even going to be? Let's take a gander. Christian Kirk's ownership is going to be 5% on this slate.
Crazy because he was stone cold chalk and still a good matchup last week, but better matchup this week for Christian Kirk. And yeah, like you said, there's no reason for him to be 5% and brings down your cumulative big dog ownership as well.
Yeah, whatever Christian Kirk's prop is tomorrow, it's too low.
Yeah.
It's
I like that
too
call.
low. I still like the Justin Jefferson over 93.5. You talked about in the video, it got bumped up a little bit. That's still on Prize Picks. I like that. Christian Kirk is at 63.5 receiving yards. I like that over there. Looking at the board here.
Put the board up on the screen. Let me just make a quick call just from looking.
Who you want?
What's Judy?
I should probably just search. Jerry Judy, 58.5.
Yeah. That right there is a fucking lock.
Over?
Over. Smash the over.
All right, over 58.5 for Jerry Judy.
I like that. I like your Christian Kirk call. I agree the Jefferson one is definitely still good.
But personally, I know you don't play like this on Prize Picks. Personally, I stay away from those high yard line props because there's just a lot of ways that shit can go south, especially with how it's been in the NFL over the last few weeks. Like, you think you're getting it in good, and that shit just ain't hitting. So
yeah.
I personally stay away from like those 100-yard line or like 300-yard line passing props with like Patrick Mahomes last week. Like, you get in Patrick Mahomes over 300.5, smash spot, dude doesn't even come anywhere near 300 passing yards.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just literally Prize Picks for you, though. I mean, hang on, if this is still up, yeah, well, hold the phone, man. I've got a stone cold lock for you, an absolute stone cold lock.
What is that?
Geno Smith over 245.5 passing yards. His line right now on DraftKings is 276.
All right, that's a little ridiculous. But that shit ain't hitting though.
I know, but you
He's
gotta
not
get
going
it.
over.
You're gonna get it in good, and then he's gonna finish with 240. I already know. Hey, we got Joe Burrow in the chat. Hey, bro, who you throwing to tomorrow? T or Chase? What's
Joe
the vibes?
What if that was actually Joe Burrow? That'd be insane.
I think he's got better stuff to do. Detroit shut down Jefferson the first time they played Minnesota. Yeah, they ain't doing that shit twice. I'll tell you right now.
I actually watched a Joe Burrow interview one time, and he's like a pretty actually reserved guy, to be honest. But
which is crazy because he's so swaggy. But
yeah, like he's really a reserved guy. Like he doesn't party or nothing like that. Like do anything crazy. He said he just sits home and chills with his girl and plays video games.
I mean, of course he doesn't party because he lives in Cincinnati.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Damn, our chat's like still beefing about this Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine.
Bro, I like I said, I put it on record, bro. Joe Mixon is not as good as people think. I've always thought that.
I mean, I don't even.
I'm not playing Joe. I'll say it. I'm not playing Joe Mixon tomorrow. So I'll put that on record.
I like that. I mean, I would honestly want to look at Prize Picks in a little more in depth before I like gave you some like stone cold locks. But I will say that Geno Smith prop is absolutely insane. I mean, you're literally getting 30 points of value on his line on DraftKings.
Yeah, so. Nah, I mean, for real, like if you want to be profitable, like you're comparing sportsbooks lines to Prize Picks lines, and you're taking the biggest discrepancies, period, or the highest odds. Yep. Long term, that's your easiest way to win, in my opinion. Short term, there's still going to be a ton of variance because it's a fucking parlay prop pick site, and these dudes do nothing but sell the fucking bag every fucking day.
Yep.
Unless your name is Aaron Ekblad.
The
Shout,
fucking GOAT,
shout out to
bro.
Ekblad.
God, dude. I mean, I want a jersey. I couldn't even tell you what team he plays for in the NHL, but that's my fucking boy.
All right, we got off the rails here.
For sure. All right. Anyways, can I give you my favorite GPP wide receiver this week?
Yeah, can I guess it?
You can.
Well, I need a range. Like, is he 6K and above or below?
Below. I said
Oh,
it on the pod.
I think I guess it's not. I can't guess because I think you told me it.
I did tell you,
Yeah,
but
it's George Pickens.
it's George Pickens. I mean, the
So
squeaky
that doesn't
wheel of
count.
all
That doesn't
squeaky
count.
wheels, bro. 5K flat, great price tag, great matchup against the Ravens secondary. He was putting together a really consistent stretch of games prior to last week when he got 2 targets, 1 catch for 2 yards, threw an absolute temper tantrum. And then Mike Tomlin backed him up on it and said, yeah, dude, you're right. Like, I get it. And I think they're going to feature Pickens. I think Pickens is going to be a focal point. They're going to get him right. Talent is there. Rookie wide receiver in December. That sets up really well. Baltimore secondary is atrocious. Nobody's going to play George Pickens. I mean, I'm calling it, bro. I think tomorrow you can build a really chalky core. You play George Pickens over Garrett Wilson. You play Miles Sanders over DeAndre Swift. Top of the fucking charts, dude. Absolute top of the charts.
Yeah, you're fucking you're banging the spy, right? Tomorrow, that's what you told me.
I'm banging the spy tomorrow. I actually think I'm going to play early only a little bit too tomorrow, and they're both early games, so we'll see what's up with that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I do like the George Pickens call. It's a good spot. The Ravens have been kind of a pass funnel this year, so I definitely do not mind that at all tomorrow. Like that call as a cheap tournament wide receiver. Love the Jerry Jeudy pivot off of DJ Moorchalk. One of my favorite tournament wide receivers. I mean, Tyler Lockett. Smash play. Smash play tomorrow. Tyler Lockett is projected at 10%. I mean, just
how does that work though? Like, how has Tyler Lockett been like chalk all year long, or like at least secondary chalk all year long, and now he's going to be in a spot where the Seahawks have no running backs and DK Metcalf is hobbled, and he's going to come in with like his lowest ownership in like 2 months? How the fuck does that work?
It's just his range isn't going to be owned that much. The mid range is going to have a little bit of ownership. People are going to have to get up higher. The lineup construction just doesn't work with these mid range guys this week. So you're going to get, Mike Evans, Lockett, Christian Kirk, Deebo Samuel. I love Deebo Samuel this week. I mean, 6,100 is just too cheap for a player of Deebo Samuel's caliber, period. So that's just a bet on talent play. Purdy's going to give them a lot of low A-dot stuff. There's a lot of potential yak ability in that 49ers offense, and Deebo Samuel, one of the best yards after catch players in the entire league. I mean, that's my call for tournaments is this 6 to 6,500 range at wide receiver, 6,600. Christian Kirk, Lockett, Deebo Samuel are my 3 favorite tournament plays this week, and I think one of them is in the Millie Maker winner.
Yeah, I'll co-sign that. Love that.
Any other wide receivers you want to talk about? I mean, Adam Thielen is kind of interesting, 4,900. I mentioned DJ Chark a little bit ago, 4,300. You have Isaiah McKenzie cheap, Gallup potentially. Nobody's going to play the Cowboys wide receivers, even CeeDee Lamb at 7,500. Probably going to get a 25% target share there in a good spot. Like, any interest there? AJ Brown potentially.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Lamb. I think if that game, like, Lamb has a decent ownership projection on him, but I think that like if you're playing him and you're not playing the Cowboys guys, you're still in a pretty contrarian build off that. So like I still like him there. I'm always down to play, and I always make it a point to play wide receivers with massive ceilings at low ownership attached to great offenses, i.e. AJ Brown and Steph Diggs this week. I think that I'll definitely have exposure to both in my tournament lineups tomorrow. Other than that, man, I think we've definitely talked about everybody I'm interested in. I will say that I'm definitely off Adam Thielen in tournaments. He has one game over 20 points this season. he just looks washed, to be honest. Like I would rather, play Hawk. I would rather play Jefferson and stuff like that. And I mean, I would have had some light interest in Thielen if the ownership didn't get up there, but it looks like he's going to be a top 5 owned wide receiver on the slate. So at that, ownership price tag, I'm all good on Thielen this week.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind fading Thielen for sure. I mean, just a low upside option at this point in his career. And Brandon brought up a good point with TJ Hawkinson. We're going to talk about tight ends here. TJ Hawkinson at 5,100, definitely a standout play for sure. But anything else you want to say at wide receiver?
I'm good.
All right. Moving on to tight end. I mean, we can start at the top. Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson are the 3 highest priced tight ends on this slate. I don't think you're playing Travis Kelce in cash. I don't think you're playing Mark Andrews, although, Tyler Huntley has come in his starts and targeted Mark Andrews quite a bit. We just talked about it that this Ravens offense is just so like low ceiling right now.
Right.
Just with the skill position players that they have. And Mark Andrews is the only guy, but they're just not scoring a ton of touchdowns. They don't have the players that can, speed up games. Brandon did mention it in the chat. Like they're going to try and control the clock, run the ball a ton. Huntley's going to have at least like 10 attempts tomorrow. So Mark Andrews, I think, is a good play. But if he's going to be owned, I'd probably fade him. Just what is it? What is his ownership looking like? Mark Andrews?
Andrews is going to be very low owned.
Yeah, so his projection is horrible. Mark Andrews is. So I guess he's an okay tournament play, but I still just don't want to play this Ravens offense. Maybe that's a hot take. But in terms of projections, it's not. I do think TJ Hawkinson is a better play than. Yeah, Kelce talked about it on his podcast.
Yeah, did he?
Yeah, he talked about losing the fumble, and he said that he felt like he lost the team the game, and he's just excited to get back out there and prove to everybody what he's capable of. Which I mean, we already know. It's not like he has to prove anybody wrong.
Yeah, like dude, you're like clear cut the best tight end in the league. What are you proving? Like we all know it happens. But yeah, no, I agree. Like Kelce is a good play this week. It's just like I wish the ownership was a little bit lower. Like he's going to be pretty close to 15% owned tomorrow, so that makes it a little tough to play into at 7,600, I think. But nonetheless, a good play. If I do trot out one of those hopeless Russell Wilson stacks just in a chance of glory, Kelce would definitely be the go-to bring back for sure.
They have done a good job against Kelce in recent memory, though. I will say that, but that doesn't really mean anything. But the Broncos defense is obviously tough. They're at home, but Kelce is still Kelce. But I'm not playing him, so there's that.
No doubt about it. I mean, I like George Kittle. If I'm not mistaken, he's the one who came up with the nickname Big Cock Brock. So, I mean, he gets some equity right there. 4,300 stands out for sure as a price tag on George Kittle. We haven't seen like the crazy ceiling games. I think he has 2 games over 20 this season. I mean, if you get 20 out of George Kittle at 4,300, though, you're feeling absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't play Kittle, so.
No, that price tag doesn't do anything for you. Bucks have given up the 4th most fantasy points to tight end this year.
Yeah, there's just a lot of mouths to feed on that offense, and I just like his target upside just isn't high, right? And it's one of the lowest total games on the slate, and as we see, like you need him to score touchdowns for him to hit his ceiling, and it's the lowest total game on the slate, surprisingly, if I'm not mistaken. What is the total on that game?
The total on that game is
37.5.
37.5, just below or just above, sorry, the Ravens and Steelers game at 37 even.
Yeah. So, I mean, probably not going to George Kittle, but the price tag does stand out for sure. But like realistically, he's going to get like 4 or 5 targets.
Yeah, I mean, we totally just skipped over like cash games and got right into tournaments for tight end. It's Greg Dulcich week for cash. I mean, I don't know, bro. You probably just play him to be honest, in terms of like cash games. But has there ever been an easier fade in tournaments? You're telling me we're going to be looking at 35% Greg Dulcich this week on an offense that, like, realistically their line should be like 0.5 touchdowns scored. Like, come on, bro. That fade writes itself in terms of tournaments.
No, yeah, absolutely. Tampa Bay has a better run defense and pass defense. San Francisco will throw. Yeah, but I mean, you could bump the pass rate up all you want. Still Brock Purdy throwing the ball. And there's still a ton of players to feed in that offense. So
yeah,
maybe Kittle gets helped with Purdy and, some more low A-dot stuff potentially. And I think it does hurt Ayuk the most. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo obviously targeted Ayuk the most.
Yeah.
Out of any player on that offense. So he probably gets the biggest knock out of anybody, if I had to guess. So maybe the targets get distributed to the other guys, but still a low target ceiling, in my opinion, with George Kittle. I'd rather honestly play like David Njoku at 3,900 in tournaments.
That's kind of intriguing, honestly. I like Njoku this week.
Yeah, but in cash, you're playing Dulcich. He's just going to be super owned. In tournaments, you're obviously fading Dulcich. Some cheaper guys that I like Chig this week. He's where is he? 2,700. I think Chig is definitely in play for sure. Traylon Burks is out, so they're gonna have Robert Woods, Nick Westbrook, Akina, however the fuck you say his last name, and Chig. I mean, he's earning more opportunity. He's earning more snaps, and he does have big play upside at the tight end position. I mean, you can see here, his longest play, 41, 31, 41, 48. Like,
Dude catches one of those every time.
He's got big plays in his range. And his prop, in my opinion, is too low.
What's it at?
25.5.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily get there in one catch. I mean, honestly,
or he can get you 0
for sure. I mean, they did say this
greened
week.
Out.
Yeah, and they said this week that he, like, the offensive coordinator said that they wanted to get him more involved and scheme more plays to him, based off of his recent performance. So, I mean, I like that a lot, especially, with Burks out. They really are in dire need of, pass catchers who can make explosive plays. And is that going to be Robert Woods at this point in his career? No. Is it going to be, Nick Westbrook, Akine? Probably fucking not. So I definitely like Chig Okonkwo.
Hot girls are waiting here, Ben.
For real? The fuck am I doing on this stream?
You trying to go where the hot girls are?
Of course not. I'm a loyal man. The fuck you talking about?
Yeah, Burks is out this week. Yep. Should consolidate things in that Titans passing game, but I mean, it's just big dog week. So
fair enough.
my favorite tournament tight end is Njoku for sure. Just think that his upside is high. The game is getting steam as, one of the best game stacks on the board. And, if you're playing Watson, Njoku is the perfect piece to fill out your tight end spot, pair him with Watson. And, on a slate where 13, 15 points at the tight end position will be good enough, in my opinion, I think Njoku can easily score, 15 points this week, 14 points on DraftKings, barring injury, obviously. So don't mind Njoku. He is definitely my favorite, though. Any other tight ends you want to mention here? I mean, no. Hawkinson, 5,100.
Yeah, I mean, I like Hawkinson. So I guess my two questions for you at tight end, I mean, I'm not really getting off the board, I don't think, at tight end this week, but like, one, is TJ Hawkinson really going to be like right in that 20% ownership range? Like, just with the other pay up options that people are spending up for, the ownership projection on TJ Hawkinson seems a little high to me, but I guess I could see it getting dragged because of the game stack ability. I don't know. I mean, if TJ Hawkinson was like 10%, I would be all over that. 20%, it's a different kind of conversation for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously target upside has been really good with the Vikings, but as the case has been for his entire career, he's a low ceiling option.
Yeah. I mean,
And
he gives you one monster game per year, and he already did it this year.
yeah,
So
he's a low ceiling option. I think that the floor is high, but 5,100, like if he gets you 10 to 12 points, what is that really giving you? You can get that out of Dolchich for
yeah,
2,000 cheaper or
you could
whatever.
get it out of Chig for 3K cheaper.
Yeah, potentially. And
Honestly,
I mean, you could see it. You could see it right here. I mean, yeah, 15.3, 16. That's good. So whatever. But at 5K, like he's 3xing. He's not winning you a tournament, especially if a cheap tight end. That's, let's say he scores 15.3 at 5K. If a 3,100 or 3,400 tight end scores 12,
yeah, you're dusted.
yeah. Um, I don't know. I just think Hawkinson, as like I said, his entire career, he's a low ceiling option. You need him to score a touchdown, obviously, to hit his ceiling. This game is obviously the best on the slate and has the highest touchdown upside, but this offense flows through Justin Jefferson, Delvin Cook, and he's just not ever killing you. It's that simple.
Yeah,
He's never Hawkinson is never losing you a tournament. Period.
Well, it happened once this year. We
I
dropped
played him,
42, but he was fucking chalk that week.
Yeah,
So
he was chalk. He was chalk. So
my other question for you at the tight end position, do you think it's, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, having like known the way you play DFS, but like if you need the 700 in cash, like would you go down to Chig over Dolchich?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like I mean, I wouldn't, like I said, he's a great tournament fade. I'm not afraid to fade a chalky Broncos player, especially a cheap tight end in cash. Like everybody's going to be all over it. He projects the best, but like I'm looking at lineups where like I might just say fuck it and save the cash to go down to Chig, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Dolchich is projected for 11.2 points. I think that is just way too high, to be honest. I would not have Dolchich above 10 projected fantasy points.
No.
Even with the injuries or whatever, I mean, you can see right here, yeah, maybe it's warranted, but like these are like good games out of Dolchich. And as a median projection of 11.2 points, too high, in my opinion. Chig is projected for 7.5 points. So 700 last year, giving up, almost 4 points of projected points. I think it's okay, but you're probably not doing it in cash. But yeah, Chig is definitely a good tournament pivot for sure off of Dolchich. But like I said, his projection is too high in my opinion.
That's about it for me at tight end, unless you have anything else.
No, I mean that's pretty much it. Defense, I mean, Cowboys defense gotta like people are playing Cowboys defense in cash tomorrow as chalk.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it from
exists.
like the perspective of like paying 3,800 for a defense is egregious, like okay, I get that. But when you look at it from the perspective of like they're gonna smash the fucking Texans tomorrow.
Yeah.
And getting like 15 from a 3,800 player, like that's valuable.
Of course.
So if you look at it from like that perspective, like the Cowboys defense might be the highest scoring like player. Let's just use it from a player standpoint. That's 4K or below this on this entire slate.
I mean,
the
they're
wide receivers,
probably
tight ends,
the
running backs.
They're probably the favorite. I'm not even like honestly, but like.
So are you playing the Cowboys D in cash?
No.
I think you got to consider it though. You have to.
I guess, man. I don't know. I guess I just haven't like. I still got to play with my cash lineup, so I won't say no. But like, I just literally cannot foresee myself playing a $3,800 defense in fucking cash. Like, how many times has it happened, dude? Where there's like been a good defense, and you're like, God, this spot is so good, and they get you 7 points. I mean, it's
all
well
the
within
fucking
the
time.
All the time. And so it's well within the range. I would rather play the Panthers at 2,200 facing like, 50 pass attempts from Geno Smith tomorrow. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of chalk defenses, the Steelers are going to be chalky.
Yeah, rightfully so.
But yeah, so I think like you're probably playing the Steelers in cash. That's what a majority of people are going to do. So
Those
Don't
are
mind.
those are the three chalky defenses. Cowboys, Steelers, and Panthers. Everybody else, you're fine with in tournaments at an ownership perspective.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. That's
Yeah,
pretty much it. I mean, we covered the entire slate.
truly, we truly
So,
did.
I mean, if anybody has any questions, get them in. We'll answer them. Looking at Prize Picks, trying to look at some props for my boy. He wants a 25x. So I like the Chig one, but I mean, probably wouldn't include that. I would go like Christian Kirk. If you want to game stack that Lions game, you can go like Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson over receiving yards. Right now, the Russell Wilson passing and rushing line is the best edge prop on the board in terms of projections.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I saw Russ was looking like a really good value.
yeah, pass and rushing yards. Russell Wilson is at 219.5 right now on Prize Picks, and that's the best projected prop on the board in terms of difference.
What's his? You said 219.5. What's his passing prop at?
Not sure. Russell Wilson passing prop is at 210.5.
210. Yeah, so they're banking on like 9 rushing yards. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Yeah, I mean he's gotten like a handful of 20 spots recently. So
The Geno Smith one is good too. His lines are anywhere from 267 to 270 plus on Prize Picks. So Geno Smith over passing yards, Russell Wilson over pass and rushing yards. If you just want kind of like the added rushing upside bonus. Personally, oh god, that got bumped heavy. Derrick Henry was at like 82.5 like 2 days ago rushing yards. Now he's at 90.5.
Oh, yeah, they weren't going to let you
that
get that off.
the early Derrick Henry was a smash. That's why you got to, for NFL, you have to play early.
You have to. And I mean, if for anybody who is grinding Prize Picks, I mean, like clockwork, I mean, I drop a video every Tuesday covering like these early lines. I mean, usually it's just rushing and receiving because they don't put up all the extended like categories until later in the week. But I think I'm pretty goddamn good at like figuring out what's going to get bumped. So if you want to get it in good, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and check that video out every Tuesday.
Yeah, for sure. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I mean, what are we doing here if you're not subscribed to the channel? Got the best free DFS content on the fucking planet, to be honest.
Swear to God.
But
I mean, Davis Mills under 182.5 passing.
I mean, Garrett Wilson over looks good at 61.5 receiving yards. I think that's too low. I think that Geno Smith, that's a good one for sure. What else? I'm trying to look at the board, trying to give out the props for my son. Forgot who else I said. Jerry Jeudy looks good at 58.5.
Tony Pollard got bumped down.
Yeah, you ain't had the right read on that one, Benny.
Wait, Pollard got bumped down. Zeke got bumped up. Sheesh.
The Seahawks wide receivers are too low as well. Both Metcalf and Lockett are at 65.5 receiving yards.
Wow, I really like Lockett.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be getting in the lab shortly here on Prize Picks.
Yeah, Ben and I usually we end the stream and then we just keep on talking about gambling. So
yeah, fucking 2 a.m.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully that dude's still watching. Just gave out like 5.
Yeah.
Pollard's numbers are going down because the game's likely to be a blowout, so Dallas will likely rest Pollard late.
Yeah, I mean, he still got a lot of work last week, even though they decimated the Colts. Yeah, Russell Wilson cost me 400 on a 20x 2 weeks ago. I hate it, but I have to go back to him this week. Casey is horrible against the pass, and 210 is just too low, even with Wilson being horrible. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I'm gonna be tight if I lose on a Russell Wilson bet though. It's like, why the fuck did I bet Russell Wilson? Like that's sometimes that's like where I get my hang up. I'm like, if this goes wrong, how dumb am I gonna feel? And betting a Russell Wilson over feels extremely stupid, but it's a great line. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, he's projected. Russell Wilson is projected for 236.5 passing yards right now.
That's pretty good.
So getting him at 210.5 looks pretty solid there. But yeah, I mean, I'd be thinking the same thing, bro. I'd be betting on like Chiga Conquo and all these other dudes, and then they lose, and then I'm looking at the slips after because I'm like I always evaluate like my slips, like what I could have did better, because obviously it's all on you. Like whatever you do, like it's on you, right? So I'm looking, and then I just think to myself, how fucking stupid am I that I'm betting on these fucking scrubs?
Yeah.
And then I just keep on doing it every single week.
Yeah. I mean, what else would you do?
But it's like those are the best edge props, but they never fucking hit.
No.
That's the thing.
No. I mean, it looks like one of the better edge props right now is Tyler Huntley's over on passing yards. That looks like a value prop. We could see him, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not betting that either, to be honest with you.
In terms of projections, they have this is a horrible line. A horrible line. They have Ramondre Stevenson rush and receiving yards at 116.5. That is a horrible line. You hammer that under.
Really? Hammer the under?
Yes.
116?
Bro, you know how much 116.5 rushing and receiving yards actually is? Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
For him to get 117 yards.
And
he's projected for 83, bro.
Yeah, that is a lot. He's gone under that in 4 straight.
To hammer that under. I will be putting that in a slip tomorrow for sure.
I mean, I hope so, because there's a good chance that my entire redraft season in our main league comes down to me versus you and Ramondre as the final player.
I mean, Damian Harris is doubtful, so it will be Ramondre in the whole backfield. But 116.5, like that's still too high. Like you're still getting a very good line there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For the under. So if y'all want an under, like, because I mean they like they have Derrick Henry against the Jags at 106.5. How is Ramondre the highest line in terms of rushing and receiving?
That can't be right.
That's
wrong.
That's a mega smash. The under's a mega smash.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna get 150 total yards.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh shit. Oh, my shit just got fucked. But nonetheless, I think that's about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Shout out to the people. Still got quite a few watching, so we really appreciate you guys. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We are here every single Saturday night, same time, same place, 10 p.m. Eastern. Appreciate the support. Like the video if you're watching on replay. So have a great slate, guys. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can find the link to our free Discord chat link to find that. Show notes below. Always talking prize picks, always talking DFS. Great group of guys in there. So,
yep. Make sure you join that, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I mean, we stream every Saturday night, so we hope you guys tune back in and you comment. We'll pull up the comments, all that good stuff. And yeah, I mean, shout out to everybody still watching.
Yep. We will catch you guys on the next one. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night and bank something good tomorrow. Talk to you next week.